She laughed while I scrubbed her shoes, called me the help in front of her rich friends. But what she didn't know was that I was days away from inheriting a fortune that would flip both our lives upside down. Months later, she was begging for a job in the mansion I bought with her name still on the mailbox. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your stories too. Now, let's jump into the story. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the sky over Ashburn Heights still looked heavy with secrets. Inside the Keene estate, quiet thunder echoed as Jolene Rivers' knees met the marble foyer. She was 30, bond-tired, and polishing a floor so clean it could have been a mirror. Her reflection stared back at her from the glossy tiles, a smudge of yellow gloves, worn jeans, and hope thin as thread. Jolene had been cleaning houses since sunrise, and 2 more addresses waited on her schedule. But right now only one thing mattered, leaving this mansion before pride swallowed her whole. She heard the heels before she saw them. Click, 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 sharp as a countdown. Miranda Keene swept in, all perfume and posture, like someone who believed oxygen itself was a luxury she'd purchased. Gossip blogs called her the First Lady of Venture Dreams. Wife of Magnus Keene, a once famous investor, now rumored to be bleeding money. None of those rumors showed on Miranda's face. Her confidence, like her diamonds, glittered even. When the room was dark, Jolene stayed low, hoping Miranda would pass by. But today luck walked out the service door. Miranda's stiletto stopped inches away, leaving damp circles of mud on the pristine marble. Jolene's heart sank. That mud meant extra scrubbing, extra minutes she didn't have. She reached for her cloth, ready to erase the mess, when Miranda's shadow settled over her like winter. "Perfect," Miranda said, voice smooth yet sharp. She dangled a pair of black heels between thumb and forefinger. Mud clung to the delicate leather, as if it too feared her temper. "These need cleaning. Now, I have brunch at the club in an hour, and I refuse to arrive looking like I hiked through a swamp." Jolene blinked at the shoes. The designer logo alone was worth more than her monthly grocery budget. She opened her mouth to ask if she could take them to the utility sink, but Miranda's manicured hand landed on her shoulder, light but powerful. "Do it here," Miranda ordered. "I want to make sure you don't miss a spot." The words tasted like vinegar. Jolene forced a nod, fighting the burn in her throat. Rent was due in 5 days, her younger brother needed new school shoes, and her savings account sat at $44. Argument wasn't an option. She took the heels gently, set them on a folded cloth, and reached for her small cleaning kit. Miranda didn't step back. Instead, she crossed her arms and watched. Every swipe of Jolene's brush felt amplified, like the squeak of chalk on a silent chalkboard. Mud refused to budge without a fight, hiding inside fancy grooves and stitching. Jolene worked the bristles, counting slow breaths to keep her hands steady. Then the doorbell rang, one bright chime that promised trouble. Miranda's friends had arrived early for their pre-brunch drinks. 3 women floated into the foyer, wearing pastel dresses and smiles sharp enough to cut glass. Their eyes locked onto the scene, Jolene on her knees, toothbrush scrubbing designer leather. Miranda standing over her like a queen, surveying a loyal subject. "Oh, this is priceless," one woman whispered, loud enough for sound to travel. "Miranda, you always find the best entertainment." "She's quick," Miranda replied, tapping her smartwatch. "But I do believe motivation matters." She raised her voice so the whole foyer echoed. "Remember, dear, every scuff you miss is a strike against your paycheck." Laughter rippled across jeweled necklaces. Jolene kept her head down, cheeks burning. She felt the phone in her pocket vibrate, probably another reminder from the utility company, but she couldn't answer. She scraped dried mud from the slim heel tips, while their jokes filled the air like smoke. Minutes crawled. At last the shoes gleamed, darker and richer than when Miranda had kicked them off. Jolene set them on a white towel and whispered, "They're ready." Miranda lifted a heel, inspected it as if judging a rare gem, then nodded. "Adequate." She reached into a clutch, pulled out a folded bill, and tossed it. The money fluttered, landed inches away. Jolene's lungs froze. A single $5 note. It's not even enough to cover bus fare home. That's all you're worth, Miranda said, her smile colder than the marble. Don't spend it all in one place. The women sashayed away, heels clicking like applause meant for themselves. Only after the door to the sunroom shut did Jolene let her shoulders shake. She stared at the crumpled bill, fingers twitching. Pride begged her to leave it on the floor, but hunger whispered louder. She crawled forward, picked it up, and folded it into her pocket. A clock somewhere chimed 10. Jolene exhaled, wiped her eyes, and returned her tools to the caddy. She left the mansion through the back corridor, rain-washed garden scent lingering in the air. Outside, clouds parted just enough for one thin line of sunlight to slip through, warming her face. For a heartbeat, she allowed herself to believe. Better days were possible. The next morning, exhaustion clung to her bones while she scrubbed limescale from a stranger's bathtub. Lemon cleaner stung her nose. Yesterday's humiliation still echoed. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Fancy area code. Debt collector, she guessed, but something urged her to answer. Ms. Rivers, a calm voice asked. This is Ellis Porter from Porter and Grant Solicitors. I'm calling regarding the estate of Nora Rivers. Jolene froze, kneeling beside Sudsy. Water, Aunt Nora. She hadn't heard that name in years. Her mind raced through memory's blanket forts. Homemade raspberry jam. A soft voice telling her she was destined for great things. Your aunt listed you as primary beneficiary, Ellis continued. I understand this may come as a surprise, but we need you in the office at your earliest convenience. There are considerable assets to discuss. The scrub brush slipped from Jolene's wet fingers, splashing her uniform. She barely noticed. Yesterday she had knelt under Miranda's judgment. Today an unexpected door was opening, whispering of change. She rose from the floor, breathing hard. Soap dripped, but a spark lit behind her. Eye small, bright, unstoppable. Miranda Keene's voice of scorn seemed to fade. Pulled backward by the sound of destiny clearing its throat. Jolene didn't know the details yet, but she felt them humming. In her bloodstream, the day pride spoke too loud was also the day quiet dignity heard its calling. And the echo of that calling was only just beginning. Jolene Rivers stood in the lobby of the glass tower building clutching a canvas tote that smelled faintly of bleach. Polished floors stretched out like a lake beneath her worn sneakers. And everywhere she looked, people floated past in sharp suits, speaking a language of confidence she had never learned. She felt the janitor's uniform on her skin. The way someone might feel a spotlight hot and exposing, but she raised her chin and stepped toward the front desk, the receptionist. A neat woman with flawless eyeliner glanced at Jolene's work, closed and blinked twice. May I help you? Her tone balanced between politeness and suspicion. I have an appointment with Ellis Porter, Jolene said, voice steady. He called yesterday. The receptionist typed, frowned at the screen, then looked up with new respect. Mr. Porter will see you on the 50th floor. Private elevator is that way. She pointed, suddenly warmer, as though the computer had whispered a secret about the woman standing before her. The elevator ride felt like a rocket launch. Lights blinked past the numbers 30, 40, 45 each, ding, echoing in Jolene's chest. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway lined with artwork that probably had its own insurance policy. A tall man waited by a glass door, silver hair, kind eyes, tailored charcoal suit. Ellis Porter. Ms. Rivers, he greeted, shaking her hand without hesitation, as if the smell of disinfectant didn't bother him. Thank you for coming so quickly. Please, this way. His office overlooked the whole city. Taxis were tiny. Toys, and the river shone like metal ribbon under gray clouds. Jolene perched on the edge of a leather chair, feeling the unfamiliar softness against clothes still damp from morning mopping. Ellis opened a thick folder, then paused. Before we discuss numbers, I want you to know your aunt spoke of you often. She believed in your resilience. Jolene felt a pinch behind her eyes. Images of Aunt Nora floated up, tinkering in a cluttered garage, laughing at her own jokes. Sending birthday cards that Jolene had left unread after teenage pride built tall walls. Ellis slid a single sheet toward her. A photo paper clipped too. The corner showed Aunt Nora in safety goggles, grinning beside a strange metal circuit. Below the photo, numbers crowded the page-long rows of digits that looked like phone numbers stacked together. "This is the valuation of your inheritance," Ellis said gently. Jolene leaned closer. For a second, her brain refused to translate the zeros. $412 million. She whispered the word million in her mind, tasting each syllable. Air thinned, the room tilted. Ellis poured water, waited while she sipped. "Aunt Nora founded a research firm in the early 80s, he explained. Her patents underpin modern battery storage and eco-fiber screens. She licensed technology rather than selling outright. The royalties compounded for decades." Jolene's fingers trembled around the glass. "I thought she was just tinkering." "Genius often looks like tinkering until the world catches up," Ellis replied. He outlined the basics, trusts already in place, advisors ready to meet, taxes handled, nothing shady, everything clean. Jolene listened, half present, half wandering through memories of cheap dinners and overdue bills. $44 in the bank yesterday? Now, this dot Ellis slid. A sealed envelope across the desk. "Your aunt left you a letter." The handwriting was messy, confident, just like Nora. "My brave Joe," it began, "people will measure you by what you have, not by who you are. Prove them wrong. Build something that lifts others. Remember, those who treat people like dirt usually end up tasting it." Jolene's throat closed around a laugh, and a sob tangled together. She looked up. "She wants me to use this for good." Ellis nodded, and she believed you would. After signing preliminary papers, Jolene rode the elevator down, holding a heavy binder of accounts. The lobby no longer felt like an alien planet, felt like a beginning. Outside, wind tugged her ponytail as she called her brother Marcus, who was between classes at community college. "I can finally pay your tuition," she whispered. He whooped so loudly she had to pull the phone away from her ear. That night, Jolene sat at the small kitchen table of her studio apartment with spreadsheets open on a borrowed laptop. She hired a fiduciary advisor online, scheduled meetings with community organizers, and made a list titled "Ways to Honor Aunt Nora." At the top, build free tech labs for underserved teens. Underneath, start scholarship fund for caretakers. Every idea felt like planting a seed in soil that had just discovered rain around midnight. Curiosity nudged her toward old instincts. She typed Magnus Keene into a search bar. Stock forums buzzed about failed crypto startups, lawsuits, creditors lining up. Headlines hinted at foreclosure whispers around the Keene estate. Jolene leaned back, heartbeat steady, remembering Miranda's laugh echoing off marble. She did not feel vengeance, exactly. More a sense of poetic alignment, as if the universe had balanced equations long overdue. She bookmarked public auction notices, set alerts for property listings, and closed the laptop with a quiet click. Days blurred into action. Jolene met accountants who spoke in plain terms because she insisted. She tested electric cars powered by batteries her aunt's patents had improved. She donated to the local shelter where she once stood in line for canned soup. Each signature, each handshake, stretched her confidence wider than she thought possible. Yet every evening, she returned to that bookmarked newsfeed tracking the Keene finances. Debt tallies rose, court dates shuffled, and rumors of a mansion auction solidified into fact. Jolene wrote the date in her planner and underlined it twice. 1 week before the auction, she visited Ashburn Heights after sunset. From her parked car, she studied the Keene mansion's tall windows glowing gold. She remembered the echo of her brush on Miranda's heels, the sting of a $5 bill landing by her hand. She whispered to the empty passenger seat, "Aunt Nora, I hope I'm using this gift the right way." Wind rattled the leaves of manicured hedges. Somewhere inside, Miranda moved through rooms already sliding out of her grasp. Jolene started. The engine, headlights sweeping across the grand gate, and drove off with a calm smile. The fortune no one saw coming had arrived in Jolene's life like a storm breaking open the sky. What mattered now was how she would direct the rain weather. It would flood in anger or nourish something new. She had chosen her path, justice with purpose, power with mercy. The countdown to the courthouse had begun, and destiny, polite but insistent, was saving her a seat in the front row. The courthouse on Main Street looked harmless at dawn, its columns still wearing shadows while pigeons strutted across the steps. Jolene Rivers parked a black sedan at the curb and cut the engine. For the first time in years, her hands did not smell like bleach or pine cleaner. Today they held a slim leather portfolio stamped with the initials J.R. Enterprises. She took a slow breath, adjusted the charcoal suit that hugged her new confidence, and stepped into crisp morning air. Inside the rotunda, voices bounced off marble walls. Bidders clustered in small groups, whispering numbers, checking phones, pretending calm. Auction days always drew a strange mix, sharp-eyed investors hunting bargains, nervous heirs selling memories, and curious onlookers looking for drama. By 10 o'clock, every wooden bench creaked under anticipation. Jolene chose a seat near the front, silent and steady. She tucked a stray curl behind her ear and watched the double doors opposite. She knew Miranda Keene would arrive late. Pride often prefers a grand entrance, even when pride is broke. The doors swung wide at 10:05. Miranda swept in wearing a cream trench coat and dark glasses too large for her thin face. Magnus Keene trailed behind, shoulders tense, phone glued to his ear. Rumors said his crypto ventures had crashed so hard, the court froze their accounts. Jolene noticed a tremor in Miranda's hand as she signed the bidder register. The woman who once threw a $5 bill at a cleaner now clutched a cashier's check that represented the last remnants of her kingdom. The auctioneer, barrow-chested man with a booming voice, mounted the dais. Lot number 1, he announced. The Keene estate, 12 bedrooms, 9 baths, 5 acres of Ashburn frontage. Its opening bid, $900,000. Gasps rippled. The mansion had listed at $6 million only a year ago. Foreclosure discounts were brutal. Miranda raised her paddle first, voice clear. $900,000. A beat of silence followed. No one wanted to tango with the former queen so soon. Jolene lifted her own paddle. $1 million. Her tone was soft but carried. Head swiveled toward the calm woman in the front row. Few recognized her. Fewer still noticed the faint smile playing at her lips. Miranda's shoulders jerked. She turned toward the mystery bidder, sunglasses hiding fear. With forced confidence, she called 1.1. 1.3, Jolene replied without hesitation. The auctioneer barked acknowledgments, his gavel hovering like a hawk. Magnus whispered urgently to Miranda, but she shook him off. 1.4, she snapped. Jolene raised 2 fingers. 1.6, the benches buzzed. Strangers leaned in, smelling drama. Magnus tugged at his collar, lips pinched. Miranda's jaw clenched so tight a vein appeared at her temple. She lifted her paddle again. 1.7. Jolene did not bother to stand. She simply said, $2 million. A hush fell. Somewhere in the back, a man exhaled a long whistle. The auctioneer grinned. He loved a good duel. Do I hear 2,100,000? He asked, scanning faces. Miranda's hand wavered. She glanced at Magnus, who looked down, defeated. Her chin lifted in one final show of defiance. 2,100,000. Jolene opened her portfolio, pulled out a certified check already filled out, and raised her paddle high. The number landed. The number landed like thunder. Miranda's paddle slipped from her fingers, clattering against the tile. Whispers rose, swelling into a murmuring tide. The auctioneer, eyes bright, counted slow. Going once, going twice. Sold for $2.5 million to bidder 217. His gavel cracked wood, sealing fate. Applause broke out from spectators who loved spectacle. Jolene remained seated, heartbeat steady, while a clerk approached with paperwork. She signed without blinking, then tucked the deed into her case. Miranda pushed through rows, her heels clicking unevenly. When she reached Jolene, she ripped off her sunglasses. Eyes once sharp with superiority were now wide with disbelief. You, she breathed, like the word hurt her tongue. What are you doing here? This is impossible. Jolene stood, meeting Miranda's gaze head-on. She felt no trembling, only a quiet clarity that filled the space between them. Sometimes, she said, voice low but carrying, the person you step on ends up holding the floor beneath you. Recognition flickered. Miranda's cheeks drained of color as memory replayed. Muddy shoes, a toothbrush, 5 crumpled dollars. Her mouth opened, but no sound followed. Clerk interrupted, asking Jolene to confirm bank details. Jolene thanked him politely, then turned back to Miranda. "I'll need the keys by Friday," she said, offering a professional smile. "I'm sure you'll want time to gather your belongings." Miranda blinked, as if waking from a nightmare. "This isn't over," she whispered, voice trembling. "For you, maybe not," Jolene replied. "For me, this is just chapter 2. She picked up her portfolio, nodded to the clerk, and walked past Miranda toward the exit. Sunlight greeted her on the courthouse steps. Porters gathered, shoving microphones at anyone who looked important. But Jolene slipped through the crowd like water, anonymous again. Each step felt lighter than the last. At the curb, a driver opened the sedan door. Before climbing in, Jolene glanced back. Miranda stood frozen at the top of the stairs, coat fluttering in a sudden gust of wind. The same stone lions that once flanked Jolene's path out of the mansion now guarded her entry into ownership. Life had pivoted, swift and precise. As the car pulled away, Jolene rested her head against the seat and closed her eyes. She thought of Aunt Nora's letter, "Build something that lifts others." Winning the mansion was only a tool, a foundation waiting for purpose. Tomorrow, she would meet architects, educators, and city planners to map out the Nora Rivers Center. Tonight, she allowed herself a single moment of satisfaction. The bid that broke her silence had also broken every chain of the past. Streetlights blurred outside the window. Jolene opened her phone and typed one sentence into her notes. "Power is quiet until it speaks. Then it never needs to raise its voice again." She saved the line, smiled, and watched the city move by a mosaic of lights. Chances and futures she was finally ready to claim. 6 months melted away like frost and sunrise, and the Keene mansion no longer carried that name. A restored iron gate now read the Nora Rivers Center. Letters painted the same bright teal as Aunt Nora's favorite toolbox. Early light spilled. Across fresh gardens where marble statues once stood, school buses lined the drive, and the smell of cinnamon rolls drifted from a new community kitchen. Children's laughter replaced the hush of old wealth. Jolene Rivers walked the main hallway, sneakers squeaking on polished oak planks she had personally chosen to replace the cold marble. She paused at a glass wall that looked into a buzzing tech lab. Teens huddled around recycled laptops, writing simple code that made animated rockets zoom across screens. Each click and giggle sounded like a spark catching fire, exactly as she had hoped. In the former ballroom, long tables held art supplies instead of crystal chandeliers. Volunteers guided younger kids through painting sunsets and collaging dreams. Jolene's brother Marcus, now a scholarship recipient at the State University, taught a weekend robotics club in the corner. His face glowed as he showed a group how to wire tiny motors. Seeing him thrive made Jolene's chest warm. Staff who once cleaned under orders now managed with pride. Maria Gonzalez, head of facilities, balanced a clipboard while greeting visitors. Thomas Reed, chief horticulturist, tended the memorial garden rose bushes shaped into the letters N.R. Everyone wore badges that read "Dignity First." Jolene believed a name tag could be a promise if the letters meant something. At 10 o'clock, soft knock came from the reception desk. Jolene turned to see a woman hesitating in the doorway. Thin coat, budget shoes, hair pulled back in a plain tie. The memory struck Jolene like a chord. Miranda Keene, minus her diamonds and certainty. Beside her stood a girl about 14 clutching a worn backpack. Miranda's eyes darted around the lively foyer as though she had stepped into another planet. When she spotted Jolene, her shoulders sagged. She seemed smaller in every possible way, as if pride had been heavy armor she could no longer carry. "Ms. Rivers," she began, voice fragile, "I heard this center helps families in transition. My daughter Lydia needs tutoring and I'm searching for work. I would be grateful for any opportunity." People nearby quieted, recognizing the tension. Jolene offered a calm smile and motioned them into an office that once served as Miranda's private dressing room. The space now held bright chairs, a low table, and a shelf of donated books. Miranda sat on the edge of a chair, hands twisting. Together, Lydia kept glancing at the posters of scholarship recipients lining the wall, wonder mixing with fear. Jolene knelt to the girl's level. "What's your favorite subject?" "Science," Lydia whispered. "But I'm behind. We moved a lot recently." "We have after-school labs that can catch you up," Jolene said, "and Saturday workshops with Marcus if you want extra help." Lydia's cheeks lifted in a shy smile. Jolene rose, meeting Miranda's nervous gaze. "There's a custodial supervisor position free," she continued. "Fair wage, full benefits, training included. Experience cleaning large properties would be quite useful." Her tone held neither mockery nor patently fact. Miranda's eyes filled with water that did not fall. "Thank you. I'll work hard, I promise." Jolene nodded. "We hire for kindness first, skills second. You'll report to Mary Oliters. She appreciates teamwork." The irony hung unspoken between them, but Jolene didn't twist the knife. Vengeance had already done its own work. The lesson was alive in Miranda's trembling gratitude. Jolene chose something stronger than payback grace. Grace was not softness. It was strength disciplined by purpose. Paperwork completed. Jolene escorted mother and daughter to the cafeteria where warm bread and vegetable soup waited. As they joined a table of newcomers, sunlight poured through tall windows, dusting the room in gold. Jolene stood for a moment watching Lydia laugh at a joke another girl made. The sound felt like a door opening. After lunch, the center hosted its official ribbon cutting. Neighbors, donors, and city officials gathered on the south lawn. A jazz trio played near the steps, and volunteers handed out seed packets labeled Plant Hope. Jolene stepped to the microphone, a gentle breeze tugging her blazer. "6 months ago," she began, "this property was a symbol of power that served only a few. Today we dedicate it to serving many." She glanced toward a framed portrait of Aunt Nora placed beside the podium. "My aunt believed real success lifts others. This center exists because of her ingenuity and because a community chooses compassion over competition." She thanked architects, teachers, and the maintenance crew by name. Applause rose in waves. Miranda watched from the staff section, wiping a tear when nobody looked. Lydia waved at her new tutor across the crowd. Marcus recorded the speech on his phone, grinning with sibling pride. After the ceremony, Jolene returned inside, passing a memory plaque mounted near the foyer's restored columns. It read, "Respect is wealth that never devalues." She traced the engraved letters, feeling the truth in each groove. Later, when the last guest departed and sunset painted the classroom's copper, Jolene walked the quiet halls alone. Echoes of laughter lingered like perfume as she paused outside the tech lab. Listening to the gentle hum of dormant computers, the promise of tomorrow's lessons already humming in the wires, her phone buzzed. A message from Maria. Miranda stayed. "Late to help fold laundry for the shelter drive? Just thought you'd want to know." Jolene typed back a simple heart emoji and slipped the phone away. Standing in the grand foyer, she remembered kneeling here months ago with a toothbrush and muddy heels. She imagined telling her past self, "Hold on, the story flips." She smiled at the thought, then turned off the lights one by one, leaving the building in calm darkness, ready for a fresh dawn. Outside, under a sky clear and violet, Jolene breathed deep. The mansion, reborn, stood not as a trophy, but as a lighthouse. Inside those walls, dignity had space to bloom. And on that quiet evening, Jolene understood the full circle. Pride had spoken too loud. But grace spoke last, and its voice would echo much longer.